She
Please
sang to the
wake up.
dying wolf,
You
and
can't
every
die,
alpha
not
bowed
now.
when he claimed her voice.
Stay with me.
Mist curled between the crooked rooftops of timber houses, and the wind whispered secrets through the twisted branches of the blackened woods surrounding the settlement. Villagers moved cautiously, eyes darting at every shadow, for tales of wolves that were not just beasts but spirits of kings who had died long ago were not merely stories. They were warnings. Alara moved with quiet steps, her sandals brushing against the damp stones. Her small satchel contained her lute, a gift from her mother, and her notebook of songs. She had a voice that could stir the heart, or so the villagers said. Many praised it, but others feared it. Music, after all, had power, and in lands like these, power invited attention. Tonight the wind carried a sound unusual for the village, a low, pained growl. Alara froze, her heart quickening. From the forest's edge came the sound again, closer this time. She tightened her fingers around the lute strings and, despite her fear, stepped into the darkness, guided only by the silver gleam of the moon. The trees arched overhead, their bare branches like skeletal hands. Every step she took seemed to echo in the silence. And then she saw him. A wolf, larger than any she had ever seen, lay on the forest floor, one paw bent at an unnatural angle. Its fur was as black as the night, and its eyes, amber and intelligent, locked onto hers. The animal shivered and growled softly, a warning mixed with pain. Alara knelt, feeling the ground damp beneath her knees. She didn't know why, but she felt a strange pull toward this creature, a mixture of fear and pity. "It's all right," she whispered. "I won't hurt you." The wolf's breathing was ragged, and as she looked closer, she noticed scars along its flank, marks that seemed too purposeful for a simple fight. Alara's heart ached. Slowly, she placed her hand near the wolf, not touching it, but letting it sense her presence. Then she did something she had never dared before in the forest alone. She lifted her lute and strummed softly, letting a melody slip into the night, low, gentle, a song of solace and hope. The wolf's ears twitched. Its amber eyes softened, and it lowered its head slightly. Encouraged, Alara continued to play, her voice rising above the hush of the forest. She sang of warmth, of safety, of rest for weary souls. Minutes passed like hours. The wolf's growls faded, replaced by quiet whines. Its body, tense and trembling before, began to relax. Alara felt tears prick her eyes. She had saved animals before, but this was different. This was not just a wolf. She could feel a weight in the air, a presence older and heavier than the forest itself. Suddenly, the wolf's form shivered violently. Alara stepped back, fear clawing at her. The creature's body seemed to ripple, shadows twisting along its fur. Before her eyes, the wolf began to change. Muscles lengthened, limbs straightened, and bone reshaped itself. Fur receded, leaving skin pale as moonlight. Alara gasped, falling backward. The creature that now stood before her was no longer a wolf, but a man, tall, broad-shouldered, with hair as dark as the night and eyes that still held that same amber intensity. His chest heaved, and he looked down at her with a mixture of confusion and vulnerability. You sang to me," he asked, his voice low, almost a growl. Alara's hands trembled. I thought you were hurt. I wanted to help." He studied her, and for the first time she noticed the subtle marks on his skin, like faint scratches forming runes of old magic. His expression was a strange mixture of gratitude and wariness. No one has ever looked at me and sung without fear." I wasn't afraid," she whispered, though the truth was she had been. Fear had been there, but so had something stronger: curiosity, empathy, a strange longing she couldn't name. The man, the wolf turned human, took a hesitant step toward her. "I am Kale," he said, "cursed. Bound to this shape until someone's voice can reach me." Alara's heart skipped. "Cursed?" she asked. "You mean you were a wolf because of magic?" Kale nodded, his gaze distant. "Long ago, kings feared my lineage. They bound me, left me to wander as a wolf. I have lived like this for decades, waiting." His eyes softened slightly, but there was an edge of pain in them that made her stomach twist. You are alive," she murmured, as if confirming a miracle. "I am," he said, "but only partially free. Your voice, it is the first thing that has reached the man beneath the beast." He took another step closer, and though she wanted to move back, she couldn't. There was something magnetic about him, something both dangerous and heartbreaking. Alara swallowed hard. I don't know why I sang, it just came out." Kale studied her, and then a faint, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. "Perhaps it was fate," he said. "Perhaps it is why we met." For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Only the wind in the trees and the distant howl of a real wolf broke it. Alara wanted to speak, to ask questions, but words failed her. She had been drawn into a story far bigger than herself, into a world of curses, magic, and desire she could not name. Kale's gaze softened further. "Will you stay just for tonight? I have not spoken to anyone in decades. I am lonely." Alara hesitated. She had always been drawn to the strange, the magical, the dangerous, but loneliness, that was different. It was human. And in those amber eyes, she saw not a predator but a man broken by time and magic, waiting for a connection that had never come. I will stay," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. They moved to a small clearing, where the moonlight painted silver patterns on the ground. Alara sang again, softly, letting her voice fill the clearing, weaving notes of comfort and hope. Kale sat beside her, leaning back against the roots of an ancient tree, and for the first time in decades he felt peace. Hours passed. The air grew colder, but neither of them noticed. Alara's voice was steady, gentle, carrying warmth into the night. Kale closed his eyes, listening, feeling a part of himself heal with each note. Then, without warning, Kale stirred. His hand brushed against hers, almost instinctively, and she froze. The contact was light, but it carried an intensity she could not explain. "Alara," he said, voice thick with something she could not name, longing, need, or perhaps fear. She looked at him, eyes wide. "Yes. Your voice, it reaches places I have forgotten even existed." He exhaled sharply, as if the effort of speaking was immense. I must return to the forest before the dawn, but I fear I cannot let you go so easily." Alara's heart raced. "Why?" she whispered. Kale's amber eyes bore into hers. "Because the world we live in, it does not forgive. And yet I have felt life again tonight because of you. I cannot let that end." She wanted to say something, anything, but the words tangled in her throat. Instead, she nodded slowly. She understood in that moment that her life, her fate, had shifted. She had touched something ancient, something dangerous, and it had touched her back. Kale stood, stretching his arms and legs, transforming again for a moment as shadows flickered along his skin. "Meet me at the edge of the woods tomorrow night," he said. "Do not be afraid. Just trust your voice." Before she could answer, he stepped into the darkness, his form dissolving into shadows. She ran to the edge of the clearing, calling after him, but only the echo of her voice returned. The forest was silent once more. Alara's hands shook, her lute dangling at her side. Her chest ached with longing she could not name. The memory of his amber eyes, the warmth of his presence, lingered in her mind like a melody that would not fade. She knew, deep in her soul, that she would return. That she must return. And in the quiet of her small room that night, as she traced the edges of her notebook, she realized something terrifying and thrilling. Her song had awakened more than a man. It had awakened a destiny. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying a single word she almost didn't hear, a promise, a warning, and a call all at once. "Come back." The next evening, a pale moon hung low over the village, painting silver streaks across rooftops and cobbled streets. Alara's satchel was heavier than usual, filled with her lute, songbooks, and a small bundle of clothes. Her heart thumped with a mixture of fear and anticipation. Tonight, she would meet Kale again, but this time they would leave the safety of the forest behind. The city of the king, with its towering walls and watchful guards, awaited. Kale was already waiting at the forest's edge. His form flickered between human and shadow, a reminder of the curse that bound him. When he saw her, his amber eyes softened, and a faint, almost imperceptible smile tugged at his lips. "You've come," he said, voice low, carrying both relief and command. "I promised," Alara replied, gripping her lute tightly. "But Kale, what will happen when we reach the city? It is full of people, and not all of them are kind." Kale stepped closer, lowering his voice even more. "We must be cautious. The court does not welcome strangers, especially not those with voices that carry power. But your song, it may be the key to breaking my curse completely." Her fingers trembled slightly as she followed him. There was something intoxicating in his confidence, something dangerous that made her heart race. The forest seemed to hold its breath as they moved together toward the city, shadows stretching like long fingers behind them. The city rose before them like a wall of stone and firelight. Towers glinted in the moonlight, and the streets were alive with whispers. Soldiers in dark armor patrolled, eyes sharp and suspicious. Merchants called out to passing customers, their voices mingling with the distant clang of metal and the low hum of the market. Kale's eyes scanned the walls, calculating and precise. "We enter quietly," he instructed. "Do not speak unless I command it. Trust me to guide us." Alara nodded, though her heart raced at the thought of entering a place she had only heard of in stories. They slipped through the city gates, shadows among shadows, and made their way to a secluded inn near the royal district. Inside, the air was warm and heavy with the scent of wood smoke and roasting meat. Kale's posture stiffened, a tension she had never seen before. He whispered, "Here we are safe for the night, but come morning the court will demand our presence. They will try to claim you to use your voice. Be prepared." Alara swallowed hard. "Claim me? Why would they want me?" "Because your voice is rare, dangerous. Some will seek to use it for power, others for fear. And I," Kale's amber eyes darkened, "I am not certain I can protect you from them all." Her chest tightened. The thought of danger was real, yet something deeper stirred inside her, a longing she could not name, a connection to him that went beyond fear. She wanted to protect him too, though she barely knew how. The next morning the inn's quiet was broken by the distant toll of the palace bell. Kale's expression hardened. "We leave now. Keep close and do not falter. The court is a place of masks, lies, and shifting power. One wrong move, and—" His voice trailed off, leaving the threat unspoken but clear. They moved through the crowded streets, blending into the flow of merchants and townsfolk. Despite her nerves, Alara noticed the way Kale's presence drew attention. Heads turned, whispers followed, and even seasoned guards glanced twice at the man walking beside her. He carried himself with the authority of a king and the danger of a predator. Finally, they reached the palace gates. Massive doors of iron and oak loomed before them. Soldiers in polished armor eyed them suspiciously. Kale's gaze met the captain's, and for a tense moment the city seemed to hold its breath. "We have business with the court," Kale said, his voice calm but commanding. "Allow us passage." The captain hesitated, then nodded. "Follow me." Inside, the palace was a labyrinth of marble corridors, golden chandeliers, and tapestries depicting long-forgotten battles. Every footstep echoed, a reminder of the power contained within these walls. They were brought before the king, an imposing man with a crown that gleamed like firelight. His eyes were sharp, calculating, and they lingered on Alara with an intensity that made her stomach twist. "Kale," the king said, his voice smooth and dangerous. "It has been a long time since you returned to my lands. And who is this?" "This is Alara," Kale replied, his hand brushing lightly against hers. "She is the one whose voice has reached me. She will help me lift the curse." The king's gaze lingered on her as if weighing her soul. "A voice that can lift curses or break kingdoms," he said slowly. "Interesting." Alara swallowed. She felt the weight of his scrutiny, the silent challenge behind every word. She realized then that this city, this court, was far more dangerous than any forest or wild wolf she had faced. Days passed in a blur of intrigue. Alara sang only in secret, practicing in quiet corridors or empty gardens, while Kale navigated the court's treacherous waters. Rival alphas and noblemen eyed him with suspicion, some with envy, others with fear. Alara saw the subtle ways Kale's presence shifted power, a word here, a look there, and men who had ruled for decades bowed in deference or retreated in caution. Yet it was not power alone that drew her to him. It was the moments when he let his guard fall, when she saw the loneliness behind the pride, the ache of years spent as a cursed wolf. She wanted to comfort him, to ease that weight, yet she feared overstepping, feared that her voice, her gift, might bring more danger than relief. One evening, Kale led her to a balcony overlooking the city. The sun had just set, painting the sky in crimson and gold. The city's lights twinkled below like distant stars, and the wind carried the faint scent of wood smoke and stone. "You must understand," Kale said softly, leaning close so his voice brushed her ear. "The court does not forgive weakness. Every ally can be a rival and every friend may seek to use you, but I will protect you as long as I live." Alara's heart fluttered. "Kale, why me? Why not another bard, another voice?" He studied her, amber eyes dark and intense. "Because you are different. You sang not out of fear or ambition, but out of compassion. That is rare, that is dangerous." She shivered, feeling the weight of his gaze. "Dangerous, me?" "Yes," he whispered, "because your voice can save me or destroy me. And I have already begun to care for you in ways I do not understand." The wind tugged at her hair, and for a moment the world fell away. There was only Kale, only the intensity of his eyes, only the pull between them that was impossible to ignore. But the moment shattered when the doors of the palace slammed open. A man, tall and broad, with the presence of an alpha, stepped into the courtyard, his eyes fixed on Alara with a possessive glare. "So this is the one?" he asked, voice smooth but dangerous. "The one whose voice reached the cursed wolf." Kale's body stiffened, and a low growl vibrated in his chest, though he remained composed. "Step back," he warned, eyes flashing amber. Alara's heart raced. She had never seen Kale like this, a predator, a protector, a man ready to defend what was his. The stranger's gaze shifted between them, and the tension was thick enough to cut. "You cannot claim her," Kale said. "She is not yours to command." The stranger smirked. "Is that so? Everyone has a price. Everyone has a weakness, even cursed wolves who think they are kings." Alara felt a cold fear settle over her. She realized then that the court, with all its grandeur, was a cage, and she was at the center of it, her voice a prize that others sought to use. Kale stepped closer, his presence shielding her, his amber eyes burning with unspoken promise. "No one will take you from me," he said, voice low and dangerous. "Not while I draw breath." The stranger laughed softly, a sound like dry leaves in wind, and backed away, but the threat lingered. Kale's hand brushed hers instinctively, grounding them both. Alara's fingers trembled, but she met his gaze, a silent understanding passing between them. Danger would follow them, rivals would challenge them, but together, perhaps they could survive. That night, as Alara sat alone in her room, her lute across her lap, she realized something terrifying and thrilling. She was no longer just a singer. She was part of a world where power, desire, and danger intertwined, and her heart was tied to Kale's in ways she did not yet understand. And somewhere in the shadows of the palace, the whispers began. The cursed wolf has found his voice, and the world will bow or break for her song. The wind howled through the cursed forest of echoes, carrying the scent of damp earth and ancient magic. Trees twisted toward the sky like gnarled hands, their shadows stretching over paths that seemed to shift beneath every step. The forest was alive, not with animals but with whispers, voices that spoke of sorrow, fear, and long-forgotten secrets. Alara walked close to Kale, her fingers gripping her lute. Her heart beat fast, not only from fear but also from the intensity of being near him. Kale, tall and dark, moved with a grace that was both human and something older, something wild. His amber eyes scanned the forest, sharp and calculating, though a shadow of doubt crossed his face every now and then. "This forest does not forgive mistakes," Kale said quietly, his voice carrying over the wind. "It tests everything: courage, truth, loyalty. One wrong step, one doubt, and it will trap you forever." Alara swallowed hard. Why must we come here? Can't the curse be broken in the city?" Kale's jaw tightened. "No, the curse is tied to the forest, to the magic older than kings or crowns. It can only be lifted where it began, where the wolf and the man became one." They walked in silence for a long time, the only sound the crunch of leaves under their feet and the faint whispering of the forest. Sometimes Alara thought she heard voices calling her name, but when she looked around, no one was there. It was as if the forest itself was alive, testing her resolve. Suddenly, a shadow moved among the trees. A wolf, black as midnight, emerged, its eyes glowing faintly. Alara froze, but Kale stepped in front of her. "Do not be afraid," he said, voice low and steady. "They are guardians, not enemies. They will test you. Your voice, your heart, they will judge." The wolf circled them, growling softly. Alara's fingers shook, but she lifted her lute and strummed a gentle melody. The sound flowed through the forest, soft and steady, carrying warmth and calm. The wolf stopped, ears twitching, and for a moment the forest fell silent. Kale's eyes met hers, filled with admiration and something deeper. "Your song, it is stronger than I imagined," he said. "It can reach places even I cannot touch." Alara felt her cheeks warm. I just follow my heart. I sing what I feel." He nodded, but his expression darkened. "That is exactly why you are needed. The curse, it is not just a spell. It is tied to every fear, every regret, every wound I have carried for decades. And only someone pure of heart, someone willing to give of themselves without fear, can undo it." They continued deeper into the forest. The trees grew taller, denser, blocking out moonlight. Strange lights flickered in the distance, like lanterns held by invisible hands. The whispers grew louder, voices overlapping in a chaotic symphony that made Alara's head spin. "Stay close," Kale warned. "The forest will show you visions. Do not lose yourself." Almost immediately, Alara felt a pull in her chest, like the forest was reaching into her very soul. Her vision blurred, and suddenly she was no longer in the forest but standing in a shadowed memory. She saw herself as a child, singing beside a river, her mother smiling at her. Then the scene shifted, a dark figure loomed over her family, flames consuming the house, screams echoing. Alara's heart clenched and she gasped, stepping back. Kale caught her hand. "Breathe. It is not real, but it is necessary. The curse feeds on fear, on doubt. You must face it to break it." Alara nodded, though her chest heaved. She closed her eyes and sang, softly at first, then louder, pouring every memory, every fear, every love into the melody. The forest trembled. The winds shifted. Shadows receded. The whispers softened, replaced by the resonance of her voice. Kale watched her, awe in his amber eyes. "Your voice, it is more than a gift. It is a weapon, a shield, a light in the darkness. You could save me." Her song carried through the trees, and Kale felt the curse stir. The shadows along his body twisted and writhed, the wolf within struggling to break free, to tear itself apart. Kale fell to his knees, gripping the roots of a massive tree for support. "Alara, it hurts," he whispered, voice thick with anguish. Alara rushed to him, placing her hand on his shoulder. "I'm here," she said. "Let me help. Let me sing for you." She strummed her lute again, her voice rising, stronger than before. The forest seemed to respond, the wind circling them, lifting leaves into spirals of light. Kale's body shivered violently, the wolf form emerging for a fleeting moment, then receding. He cried out, not in anger but in pain, sorrow, and relief all at once. Alara's voice never faltered. She sang of hope, of redemption, of life reclaimed from darkness. And slowly, painfully, Kale began to change. The wolf receded fully into shadows, leaving the man he was meant to be. His chest rose and fell with human rhythm. His eyes, amber and alive, met hers, filled with gratitude and awe. For a moment neither spoke. The forest held its breath, the magic lingering like smoke. Then Kale leaned close, his forehead resting against hers. You did it. You reached me. You freed me." Alara felt tears prick her eyes. I was afraid," she admitted, "but I could not stop. I could not leave you in pain." Kale smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You are brave, braver than anyone I have ever known. And yet, this is not the end. The curse, it is broken, but its shadow remains. Others will come, drawn to your voice, drawn to me. The court, your enemies, they will not forgive." Alara nodded, understanding. Freedom had a cost. She had saved Kale, but the world outside this forest was as dangerous as ever. And yet, as she looked into his eyes, she felt a certainty she had never known. She would face anything with him. Suddenly, a sound echoed through the trees, a soft, deliberate clap. Both of them turned, tension snapping through the air. A figure stepped into the clearing, a man tall and elegant, with eyes like molten gold. His gaze fell on Alara with something between admiration and challenge. "Impressive," he said. "Few can reach the heart of a cursed wolf, and even fewer can calm him with a mere song." Kale stood, placing himself between Alara and the stranger. "Who are you?" he demanded, voice firm. "I am someone who knows the forest," the man replied, a faint smile on his lips. "And I know the cost of power. Be careful, wolf. Your salvation may not last, and your voice may be the key to a storm neither of you can weather." Alara felt a chill run down her spine. The forest seemed to whisper again, warning her of the stranger's meaning. She clutched Kale's hand, finding strength in his presence. Kale's eyes narrowed. "If you seek harm, step back. I will not allow it." The man laughed softly, a sound that sent shivers through the forest. "I seek neither harm nor favor," he said. "I seek balance. And sometimes balance demands sacrifice." With that, he melted into the shadows, leaving a ripple of unease in his wake. Alara exhaled slowly, feeling her knees weaken. Kale held her steady, his hand warm and firm. "You are safe for now," he said, his voice gentle. "But the world outside will test us. Your voice, my life, they are tied together now, and we must be stronger than ever." Alara nodded, her heart still racing. "Then we face it together," she whispered. Kale smiled faintly, pulling her close. The forest seemed to sigh around them, shadows retreating into the trees. For the first time in decades, Kale felt human, whole, and yet bound to someone more than magic or destiny, bound to Alara, to her voice, to her courage. They spent the night in the forest clearing, the stars peeking through the branches above. Alara sang quietly, a soft lullaby of hope and safety. Kale listened, feeling the last remnants of the curse fade, replaced by a warmth he had not felt in decades. And as the first light of dawn touched the horizon, Alara realized something profound. She had not only saved Kale, but she had found a part of herself she had never known: courage, love, and a voice powerful enough to change the course of destiny itself. But the forest had left its warning. The shadows outside would not rest. And soon, Alara and Kale would face trials that would test their bond, their hearts, and the limits of the voice that had freed a cursed wolf. The sun rose pale over the kingdom, casting long shadows across the land. The city streets, once bustling, were silent. A strange tension had settled over the kingdom, as though the earth itself waited for what was to come. Whispers of the cursed wolf and the girl with the voice that could change fate had spread beyond the walls, carried by merchants, travelers, and wandering spirits of the land. Alara and Kale stood at the edge of the city, looking toward the looming palace. The streets were empty, yet every stone seemed to hum with anticipation. Kale's amber eyes scanned the horizon, calculating, protective, yet tinged with worry. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice low, almost a growl. Alara took a deep breath, gripping her lute. "I am. Whatever comes, we face it together." Kale nodded, and they moved forward, silent as shadows. The palace gates opened as if in anticipation. Soldiers lined the walls, armor glinting in the rising sun. The rival Alpha, who had challenged Kale before, now stood at the forefront, flanked by others with eyes that glimmered with ambition and fear. Their gazes lingered on Alara, and she felt the weight of power, expectation, and danger pressing down on her. Kale stepped forward, his presence commanding and wild. "Do not underestimate her," he said, his voice carrying across the courtyard. "She is the reason I stand here, and she is stronger than you can imagine." The rival Alpha laughed, a hollow, dangerous sound. "Stronger, a girl with a song. The world bows to power, wolf, not to whispers in the wind." Alara's fingers trembled, but Kale squeezed her hand. "Remember your voice," he whispered. "Remember your courage." She nodded and lifted her lute. The notes rang out clear and true, weaving through the courtyard, echoing against the stone walls. Her voice rose above the morning stillness, carrying warmth, hope, and the weight of every emotion she had ever felt: fear, longing, love, and determination. The rival Alpha faltered, his confidence shaken. The other challengers glanced at one another, uncertainty rippling through their ranks. The power of her song was undeniable. It stirred something deeper, something ancient within them. Kale stepped closer, his presence fierce and protective. "Her voice is not just a song," he said, voice low but carrying. "It is a bond, a promise, a light that can cut through darkness, stand down or face its power." The rival Alpha's eyes narrowed, and for a tense moment, the courtyard was silent except for the lingering echoes of Alara's song. Then, as if the air itself had shifted, the soldiers began to kneel, one by one, recognizing the bond between the cursed wolf and the girl who had freed him. Even the Alpha, prideful and stubborn, could not resist. Alara's chest swelled, and she felt a surge of strength she had never known. Her song continued, weaving magic into the morning light, binding courage, loyalty, and love into a force that no shadow could break. Kale watched her with awe and something deeper: pride, wonder, and a tenderness he had kept buried for decades. When the last soldier knelt, silence fell once more. The rival Alpha stared at them, finally bowing his head in reluctant respect. "Perhaps I misjudged the power of a voice," he admitted. Kale's lips curved into a faint, victorious smile. "It is not merely a voice," he said. "It is a choice, a heart willing to act even when fear is near." Alara lowered her lute, exhaustion and exhilaration mingling in her veins. She looked up at Kale, whose amber eyes shone brighter than any crown she had ever seen. "We did it," she whispered. Kale's expression softened, and he reached for her hand. "We did together." But even as the morning light washed over the city, the forest's warning echoed in her mind. The world outside the palace still held dangers, those who would seek power at any cost. The curse may have been broken, but the shadows it had left behind would not vanish overnight. That evening, Kale led Alara to the palace garden, a place of quiet stone pathways and ancient trees. The sky blazed with sunset, gold and crimson streaking across the horizon. The wind carried the scent of flowers and earth, and for a moment the world seemed at peace. "Look," Kale said softly, gesturing to the horizon. "This is what we fight for, not crowns, not power, but life, beauty, freedom." Alara nodded, feeling the weight of their journey lift slightly from her shoulders. "I never imagined my voice could do so much," she admitted. "But with you, I felt it. I felt we could change everything." Kale stepped closer, his hand brushing hers. "You have given me more than freedom," he said. "You have given me hope, and with hope we can face anything." Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat the world fell away. The forest, the palace, the rivals, the shadows, none of it mattered. There was only this moment, fragile and bright, between the cursed wolf who had become a man and the girl whose voice had saved him. But the calm did not last. A sudden movement in the garden drew their attention, a shadow, fast and deliberate, slipping among the trees. Alara's heart raced. Kale tensed, placing himself in front of her. The shadow took shape, the golden-eyed alpha who had challenged them in the courtyard, moving with silent grace. He stopped a few paces away, his gaze fixed on Alara. "I warned you," he said softly. "Balance requires sacrifice. And the bond you share, it may not survive what comes next." Kale's amber eyes flared. "We decide our fate together," he growled. "Leave or face the consequences." The alpha's expression shifted, a mix of respect and admiration. "Very well," he said, stepping back. "For now. But remember this, the world tests those who claim power too quickly. Your journey is far from over." Alara's heart pounded, but she felt a strange strength. She had faced shadows, curses, and fear, and emerged stronger. She realized now that her courage and her voice were inseparable, a force that could light even the darkest paths. That night under the stars, Kale and Alara sat together in the garden. The wind carried the soft whisper of leaves, the distant call of night birds, and the quiet hum of magic lingering in the air. "Do you ever regret it?" Alara asked softly, leaning against him. "Coming with me, risking everything." Kale's amber eyes met hers, calm and steady. "Never," he said. "Even when the world tests us, even when shadows rise, I would choose you every time." Alara smiled faintly, feeling warmth spread through her chest. "Then we face the world together," she whispered. "Yes," Kale said, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "Together." The days that followed were filled with quiet triumphs. The kingdom began to recognize the bond between Kale and Alara, and slowly, fear and doubt gave way to respect. Soldiers and nobles alike bowed, not only to Kale's reclaimed power, but also to the girl whose song had reshaped destiny. Alara continued to sing, her melodies carrying through halls and forests alike. Her voice became a symbol, not of fear, not of power alone, but of courage, love, and hope. And wherever she sang, hearts were touched, shadows softened, and those who had once sought dominance learned the meaning of loyalty and respect. One evening, as the kingdom settled into a quiet night, Kale and Alara stood at the edge of the palace balcony, looking out at the city bathed in silver moonlight. "You have changed everything," Kale said, his hand brushing hers. "Not just me, the world." Alara smiled faintly. "And you've taught me courage and love and how to face even the darkest shadows." He pulled her close, amber eyes reflecting moonlight and a lifetime of pain and hope. "We are stronger together," he said, "bound not by curse, not by fear, but by choice and by heart." Alara leaned against him, feeling the rhythm of his heartbeat, the warmth of his presence, and the quiet strength of their bond. She knew that challenges would come again. The world was never simple, and magic and ambition never rested. But she also knew something more important. Together they could face anything. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the soft echoes of her song. Wolves in the distance howled, not as threats but as guardians, witnesses to the bond that had changed a kingdom. Even the stars seemed to shine brighter, as if celebrating the courage of a girl and the redemption of a cursed wolf. And in that moment, Alara realized the truth of their journey. Love, hope, and courage were stronger than any shadow, more powerful than any curse, and more enduring than any crown. Hand in hand, Kale and Alara turned from the balcony, stepping back into the palace, back into a world that had tested them, challenged them, and finally recognized the power of a heart and a voice united. The cursed wolf had found redemption. The girl had discovered her strength, and together they had rewritten destiny. The night stretched on, quiet but alive, carrying a promise that even in the darkest corners of the world, courage and love could shine, eternal and unbroken.